The airport smelled like burnt coffee and recycled air, the kind that sticks in your throat and makes everything feel temporary. Announcements echoed overhead. Boarding zones called out like countdowns. People hugged. People rushed. People left. My mother stood 3 steps ahead of me, her new husband's hand resting on the small of her back like he'd always belonged there. She didn't turn around when they called our flight. She didn't check if I was right behind her. She just nodded, adjusted her purse, and leaned closer to him, already half gone. "Wait," I said, because that's what sons say when they still believe waiting matters. She stopped, finally. Looked at me like I'd asked something inconvenient. Not impossible, just inconvenient. "We'll fix this," she said. "Just stay here for now. It's complicated." Complicated. That was her word for choices she didn't want to explain. I looked past her at the gate, at the jet bridge stretching out like a promise that wasn't meant for me. I packed light. 1 bag. Documents folded neatly. This trip was supposed to mean something. College visits, new beginnings, proof that I still fit into her life after the wedding. Her husband cleared his throat. Didn't look at me. Didn't have to. His comfort was already winning. "They're boarding," he said softly. She nodded again. Then she did something I still replay in slow motion. She handed me my passport back. Not the tickets. Not the plan. Just the proof that I existed. "You'll be okay," she said. "You're strong." Strong. Another word adults use when they're about to abandon you. Security waved them forward. The line closed behind them. I stood there, 18 years old, watching my mother walk away without turning back once. No wave. No hesitation. Just her shoulder disappearing into the crowd like I'd already been erased. When the gate agent asked me to step aside, that's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This was a decision. I sat down hard in a plastic chair, the airport roaring around me, and felt something inside my chest go quiet. Not break, not explode, just settle, like a switch flipping off. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I stared at the closed gate and understood something simple and permanent. She had chosen her future, and left me with mine. The first thing you notice after abandonment isn't fear. It's noise. Airports don't care about your breakdowns. Wheels keep rolling. Screens keep flashing. Families argue about snacks while pilots joke over intercoms. Life moves forward with brutal indifference, and you're expected to keep up like nothing just happened. I sat there gripping my bag, knuckles tight, watching the gate screen flip from boarding to departed. One word. Final. Like a door slamming without sound. My phone buzzed once. "Mom, we'll talk later. Don't panic." Then nothing. No instructions. No money transfer. No apology wrapped in reassurance. Just silence stretched thin like it was supposed to hold me together. I checked my wallet. $52. Enough for food or a ride, not both. I checked my bank app and felt my stomach drop. The account I thought was mine was limited. Daily cap. Her email still listed as the primary contact. Of course it was. I moved to a corner near a charging station and sat on the floor, back against the wall, my bag hooked through my arm like someone might steal my whole life if I blinked. I watched the battery crawl from 3% to 7% and wondered how long dignity lasts when survival starts whispering. A woman passed by, slowed down, looked at me too long. She asked if I was okay. I almost lied. Habit. But something in my chest was too tired. "I missed my flight," I said. That was easier than the truth. She bought me a sandwich. Didn't ask questions. Didn't stay. Just nodded like she understood that help doesn't need an audience. Ate slow. Counted bites. Let the airport lights burn into my eyes until exhaustion dulled the edges of everything. Hours passed. Night crept in through the glass walls. Cleaning crews moved like ghosts. My phone finally hit 30%, and still nothing from her. That's when it settled in fully. If I didn't move, no one was coming. I found a bench tucked behind a closed cafe and stretched out as much as a grown body can on something designed to keep you uncomfortable. I slept in fragments, waking every time someone walked by, every time a cart rattled too close. At some point, staring at the ceiling, I made myself a promise. I would never beg for space in anyone's life again. And I would never let someone who could leave me like this control anything I needed to survive. Not ever. The airport taught me that lesson in one night. By morning, I would start acting on it. Morning light makes everything look less tragic than it feels. Sunrise poured through the airport windows like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't spent the night folded into myself on a bench that smelled like old coffee and disinfectant. I washed my face in a bathroom sink, straightened my hoodie, and practiced a neutral expression in the mirror. I didn't want pity. Pity asks questions. Questions lead to explanations, and I wasn't ready to explain how your own mother can leave you behind without flinching. I called my aunt first, not because I trusted her, but because she answered. "Oh, honey," she said after I told her where I was. "Your mom said you overslept. Said you missed boarding." I went still. Missed boarding. The words landed heavier than the night before. Not because they were cruel, but because they were clean. Simple. Easy to repeat. A version of events that didn't bruise anyone's conscience. "I didn't oversleep," I said quietly. There was a pause. The kind people take when they decide which truth is more convenient. "Well," she replied, smoothing her voice. "You know how travel gets. Things happen. Things happen. To me." By noon, the story had traveled faster than I ever could. Cousins texted jokes about me being irresponsible. Someone sent a laughing emoji with "bro, you always late." My phone buzzed with assumptions, not concern. No one asked if I was safe. No one asked how I was getting home. I realized then how reputation works in families. They don't protect who's right. They protect who's comfortable. I finally heard the truth from someone who didn't owe me loyalty. My cousin Jamal. He called while I was waiting for a bus ticket I could barely afford. "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "I wasn't supposed to say this, but her husband didn't want you on that trip. Said it was their time. Their time. 18 years of raising me, and I became a scheduling conflict." I thanked him, hung up, sat there with the phone in my hand, feeling something harden behind my ribs. Not anger. Anger is loud. This was sharper, quieter, a recalibration. That night, after I finally made it back to the city, I did something small but symbolic. I deleted my mother's contact. Not to punish her. Not to make a statement. Just to stop waiting for her version of me to matter. They could keep their story. I was done explaining mine. And that was the day I understood something important. If people can erase you this easily, you better learn how to write yourself into places they can't touch. I went to sleep with a plan forming. Faint, unfinished, but real. They didn't know it yet, but they had already lost me. Independence doesn't arrive like a victory. Creeps in quietly, disguised as exhaustion. The weeks after the airport blurred together. I slept on couches that smelled like other people's lives. Friends from school, distant relatives who asked too many questions. A guy from work who let me crash in exchange for gas money. I learned how to pack my existence into one bag and not leave anything behind. Not even evidence I'd been there. I stopped calling my mother. Not out of pride. Out of clarity. Every time my phone lit up, it wasn't her name I expected. It was rent reminders, work schedules, deadlines. Survival doesn't leave room for hope. I picked up extra shifts. Early mornings stocking shelves. Late nights closing. My body learned pain before my mind caught up. Blisters turned into calluses. Fatigue turned into routine. And somewhere in that grind, I learned how to disappear. Not literally, emotionally. I listened more than I spoke. Watched how managers made decisions. Noticed how people with leverage never raised their voices. I stopped sharing plans. Stopped announcing dreams. Dreams are fragile when other people know where to step. One night, while sorting mail at a relative's place, I found an envelope with my name on it. Official. Government seal. I almost ignored it, almost handed it over like I'd been trained to do my whole life. But I opened it. Inside was paperwork tied to a benefit account created when I was younger. Educational assistance. My name was the beneficiary. My mother was the administrator. I sat there reading every line twice, then a third time slower. Terms. Age limits. transfer conditions, control language buried under polite phrasing. That's when I realized something dangerous. I wasn't broke because I lacked money. I was broke because I lacked access. The difference mattered. That night, instead of collapsing into sleep, I stayed up researching. Laws. Age thresholds. What changed when you turned 18? What didn't? I wasn't angry. Anger would have rushed me. I was patient. Patient enough to learn how systems reward those who read the fine print. The next day, I didn't confront anyone. Didn't demand explanations. Didn't ask why my life was arranged like a puzzle I wasn't allowed to solve. I just started practicing something new. Being invisible. Invisible people see everything. And when the time came, I planned to stop disappearing. I planned to reappear where it mattered most. Nobody tells you this part out loud. But hunger is an incredible teacher. Not just the empty stomach kind. The kind where you realize you don't understand how the world actually works, and that ignorance costs more than tuition ever will. I stopped thinking of education as classrooms and started seeing it for what it really was. Access to rules other people already knew. I worked days, studied nights. Not textbooks, systems, credit scores, interest rates, contracts written in language designed to sound friendly while hiding teeth. I watched videos on budgeting like my life depended on it because it did. I learned how a signature could trap you and how silence could protect you. I learned that being young didn't make you powerless. It just made people careless around you. I opened my own checking account, then a savings one. Small deposits at first. Tens. 20s. I treated every dollar like proof I was real. Proof I existed outside someone else's permission. I stopped telling people my age. Started letting them assume. At work, my manager began asking me questions instead of giving orders. I didn't correct him when he mistook competence for experience. I let the assumption work for me. That was another lesson. People respect confidence more than truth. One night, scrolling through legal forums with tired eyes, I found it. A clause. Buried deep in the same benefit paperwork I'd almost ignored weeks earlier. At 18, administrative control could be reassigned, with the right documentation and no cosigner. No permission required. Just action. My heart didn't race. That surprised me. I felt calm, focused, like this wasn't revenge. It was balance correcting itself. I printed forms at the library, filled them out slowly, triple-checked every box. I didn't rush because rushing was how mistakes happened, and mistakes were expensive when you didn't have a safety net. I mailed the packet certified, paid extra for tracking, watched the receipt slide across the counter and felt something shift. This wasn't about punishing my mother. This was about removing her from decisions she'd already proven she couldn't be trusted with. That night, lying on a borrowed mattress, I stared at the ceiling and imagined the moment she'd realize something changed. Not yet. Soon. Education hadn't made me rich, but it had made me dangerous in a quiet way. And quiet was exactly how I planned to move. Truth doesn't rush. It waits until you're ready to carry it. The confirmation email arrived on a Tuesday morning, sandwiched between a work schedule and a spam ad promising easy money. Administrative reassignment complete. Effective immediately. I read it twice, then closed my phone like it might explode if I stared too long. Nothing dramatic happened. That's how I knew it was real. No call from my mother. No sudden apology. Power doesn't announce itself when it shifts. It just changes the temperature of the room, and people feel it later. A week passed. Then two. That's when the cracks started showing. A distant relative asked if I'd handled the paperwork thing yet. The phrasing was sloppy. Too casual. I shrugged it off, said I didn't know what they meant. Invisible again. But curiosity pulled me deeper. I logged into the account now fully under my control and followed the trail backward. Transaction history. Linked services. Automatic payments I'd never approved. And there it was. Their lifestyle wasn't built on love or sacrifice. It was built on me. The benefit account fed into a larger structure, rent assistance, educational credits, leverage my mother and her husband used to stabilize their finances. Quietly, legally gray, conveniently justified because family. I didn't confront them. I gathered receipts, emails, authorization chains, dates that lined up a little too perfectly with wedding expenses and travel upgrades. Proof that leaving me at the airport hadn't just been emotional, it had been strategic. That realization hit harder than the night itself. I hadn't been left behind because I was inconvenient. I'd been removed because I was useful elsewhere. That night my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then a voicemail. My mother's voice. Soft, careful, unfamiliar. "Hey, baby. Just checking in. We should talk soon." I didn't call back. I forwarded the receipts to a folder I labeled final and locked it behind passwords no one else knew. Not yet. Timing mattered. Truth only works when it lands. And the biggest truth of all was this. They depended on something they no longer controlled. They just didn't know how permanent that was yet. I went to sleep calm. The kind of calm that only comes when the last piece falls into place. The next move would change everything. Power doesn't feel like adrenaline. It feels like silence stretching out after you stop explaining yourself. The first sign came in the form of confusion. Not anger. Not confrontation. Confusion always arrives first when people lose something they assumed was permanent. My phone lit up with missed calls from numbers I recognized but hadn't heard from in months. An aunt. A cousin. Someone who never checked on me when I was sleeping in an airport chair suddenly wanted to make sure everything was okay. Everything wasn't okay. For them. The benefit account had been the keystone. Without it, the structure they'd built started leaning. Automatic payments failed. Renewals stalled. Applications hit walls that didn't budge. Doors that once opened quietly now required signatures they didn't have. Mine. Still, I said nothing. I watched. That's the advantage of being underestimated for so long. People don't hide their panic from you. They forget you're capable of noticing patterns, of connecting cause to effect. 3 weeks after the reassignment, my mother finally called from her own number. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then she tried again. I answered on the third attempt not because I owed her anything, but because I wanted to hear the shift in her voice. "Marcus," she said, like she was testing whether she still had access to my name. "We need to talk." Need, not want. "What's wrong?" I asked calmly. A pause. Papers rustling. A breath she didn't want me to hear. "There's been some kind of issue," she said. "With the account. Things aren't working like they used to." I leaned back, stared at the ceiling, and let the moment settle. "That happens," I replied. Another pause. Longer this time. Her husband's voice murmured in the background. Tight, controlled, irritated. The sound of a man realizing the ground beneath him had changed without warning. She lowered her voice. "We were hoping you could help fix it." There it was. Not an apology. Not accountability. A request. I felt something close to satisfaction. But deeper than that, something steadier. Control. "I don't think there's anything to fix," I said. "Everything's exactly where it's supposed to be." Silence swallowed the line. She tried again, softer. "This affects the whole family." I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "So did the airport," I said. I ended the call before she could respond. That was the moment I knew. The balance had shifted. And I was done carrying weight that was never mine to begin with. She didn't wait long this time. The next call came at night when people think darkness makes honesty easier. I was sitting on the edge of my bed. My bed now, paid for with money no one could touch but me, when her name lit up the screen again. I let it ring twice. Then I answered. "Marcus," she said. And this time there was strain in it. Not fear, fear would have been honest. This was urgency wrapped in guilt. "Please, just listen." I stayed quiet. Silence is uncomfortable for people who've built their lives on controlling the narrative. "We never meant for things to happen like that," she continued. "You know how complicated life gets. I was trying to do what was best for everyone. Everyone except me." I thought about the airport bench. The cold plastic under my back. The way she handed me my passport like a receipt instead of a lifeline. "What did you do that was best for me?" I asked. She inhaled sharply. I could almost see her searching for an answer that wouldn't indict her. "We thought you were strong enough," she said finally. You always were. There it was again. Strength, to her, was just another word for manageable pain. I didn't need to be strong, I said. I needed a parent. She started crying then. Real tears, I think. The sound caught me off guard, but it didn't move me the way it used to. I'd already mourned the version of her who might have chosen me. Your stepfather is under a lot of pressure, she said between sobs. This situation, it's affecting our stability. If you could just reverse it. Just until we get back on our feet. Reverse it. As if trust worked like a toggle switch. No, I said. Calm. Clear. Final. Her crying stopped. Replaced by something sharper. You're being unfair, she said. Family doesn't do this to each other. I laughed once, quietly. Family doesn't leave an 18-year-old at an airport either, I replied. Another pause. Then a shift in tone. If you don't help us, she said, people are going to ask questions. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. I hope they do, I said. I've got answers now. She didn't threaten me. She didn't beg again. She just whispered my name like it still held power. Didn't. I ended the call and felt lighter. Not relieved, not triumphant, just free. There was one more move left, and after that I'd be done. Pressure always comes from the sides first. Not directly, not honestly. It arrives through people who pretend neutrality while carrying someone else's message in their pockets. A cousin asking how school was going. An aunt reminding me how much my mother sacrificed. Old family friends suddenly finding my number like it had been lost and rediscovered out of concern. I listened to all of it. I didn't argue, didn't defend myself. I thanked them for checking in and let the silence afterward do the work. Silence makes people uncomfortable enough to reveal their real motives. By the third call, the language changed. Just temporary. Just until things settle. Be the bigger person. That phrase always makes me smile now. It's what people say when they want you to absorb damage so they don't have to. The stepfather finally tried himself. Blocked number. Voicemail left with forced calm and a businessman's confidence that hadn't yet accepted defeat. Marcus, he said, pronouncing my name carefully. This doesn't have to get messy. We can talk this out like adults. Adults. The same man who didn't want me on the trip. The same man who benefited from my absence. I didn't return the call. Instead, I made my last move. I forwarded the receipt folder. Carefully curated. Stripped of emotion. Heavy on dates and documentation. To the appropriate office. Not with accusations. With questions. Polite ones. The kind institutions can't ignore. I didn't CC my mother. I didn't warn anyone. Consequences work best when they arrive unannounced. The fallout didn't explode. Settled. Reviews opened. Flags were raised. Things slowed down. Access paused. The kind of disruption that doesn't make headlines but changes lives. My phone rang once more that week. My mother. I answered this time. She didn't cry. Didn't beg. Didn't threaten. Why? She asked quietly. Not angry. Just tired. I took a breath. You left me, I said. Then you lied about it. Then you built a life that needed me gone. That's not how it was, she whispered. It's how it felt, I replied. And feelings don't disappear just because you don't like the outcome. She was quiet for a long time. I don't recognize you anymore, she said. I looked around my room. My books. My bed. My future. I do, I said. That was the last conversation we had. I didn't slam the door. I closed it carefully and walked away before anyone could reopen it. Some gates don't close. They wait. Months passed without noise. No dramatic reconciliation. No public apology. Just distance settling into permanence. Like dust after something collapses quietly. I finished school. Moved apartments. Upgraded my life in small, steady increments that didn't need witnesses. I learned something important during that time. Revenge isn't about watching someone fall apart. It's about no longer being affected by whether they stand or not. My mother stopped calling. The extended family adjusted their tone once they realized I wasn't coming back into position. People respect boundaries when they realize they're permanent. That's another lesson no one teaches you young. The last time I thought about the airport wasn't with anger. It was with clarity. I saw it for what it was, a line between who I was willing to be and who I became when someone showed me exactly how replaceable I was to them. Years later, I stood in a different airport, different city, different life. My ticket was in my name. My seat was mine. My future wasn't attached to anyone else's comfort. As boarding was announced, I watched families hug goodbye, watched parents kneel to meet their kids' eyes, watched hands linger like love was something you had to be careful not to drop. I didn't envy them. I understood them. When my group was called, I picked up my bag and stepped forward without hesitation. No looking back. No checking my phone. No waiting for permission. The jet bridge stretched ahead of me again. But this time, it didn't feel like a promise. It felt like ownership. I took my seat by the window and fastened the belt. As the plane taxied forward, I felt that old memory try to surface. The bench, the silence, the closed gate. It didn't hurt anymore. It just reminded me how far I'd come. Some people think revenge has to be loud to count. They're wrong. Sometimes revenge is becoming untouchable. Sometimes it's building a life so solid that the people who left you behind can't find a way back in, even if they wanted to. The plane lifted off smoothly, the city shrinking beneath the clouds. I didn't wave goodbye. I didn't need to. I was already gone.